Hello, I am Attila Szűcs. I'm a software engineer at Collabora, and I will speak about Zip46 support. So what it is and why it's needed. Most of our documents are compressed with Zip, and the original Zip was designed very long ago, and every application has limitations. So its limitations was very old. I mean, it store file size in 4 bytes, which means we can compress only 4 gigabyte sized files. It was okay at that time because the largest hard disk drive was smaller than 4 gigabytes. But as technology advanced, we reached these limitations. So they made an extension for Zip that's called Zip64. It's because they store some data in 64 bits instead of 32 bits, like this file size. This is the most important about it. Well, an important note that Zip64 mode can be used even if it would be not needed. I mean, from now on, you can zip a small archive in Zip64 mode. It could be, it's senseless, and it's just a waste of memory or bytes, but the Zip standard does not forbid it, so you can do it, and so some applications use this. So we had some bug tickets on Bugzilla because some files was saved as Zip64 mode, and LibreOffice was not able to open these files. It's not very common, but there are some of it. So we had to fix this problem anyway, without the limitations. But what are these limitations? First, the uncompressed file size. This means what's the biggest file we can compress with Zip. It was 4 gigabyte before. Now it's really huge. I'm not sure when we will reach this size. The second is the compressed archive size. It means that the zip file was not able to be bigger than 4 gigabyte. It's a much bigger, it's a much extreme limitation, because normally we could accept to have like 100 gigabyte uncompressed size if we uncompress a 4 gigabyte zip file. There are other limitations like file count, but it's usually not a problem in LibreOffice, and the disk count. LibreOffice doesn't even read this value because it was designed for we can split the zip archive into multiple parts. When we had floppy disks, we had to do this, but nowadays it's not so common. Especially LibreOffice doesn't use it because our documents just one file. We don't need to split them. And there are some other limitations, but they are really not important here. So in the end, most of these limitations are not problem for LibreOffice, except for the first. If you make a huge database into Calc, you can reach this 4 gigabyte limit. You can make bigger than 4 gigabyte content XML. Maybe it will be compressed into like 100 megabytes only, but and it will be very slow, but some people can use it, and as the technology will improve in the future, more and more people will reach this size limit. So we had to fix this. and what are the data structures that are this extension saved into. There is the extra field that is used in many places. It can be in local file header or in the central directory header. And every file can have one or two of it. The data descriptor, it still contains the file size. It can be used in special cases. It's not very common. And the other two, I don't implement in the two other thing because it's only for the other limitations for the compressed file size, for the file count, and for the discount. And what is important that this Zip64 mode is not just a flag that would be true for the whole, to the entire archive. It can be turned on in any file in the zip archive. It's more extreme that you can have two file size data for the same file that in different mode, because one file can have even two extra field, or not the extra field is, well, sorry, one file size is stored multiple times in the zip archive, and you can store one of them in Zip64 mode and one of them in normal mode. It's still senseless, but the standard allows it. So what's the challenge about it? That I already said that every file individually can be compressed or not compressed, can be encrypted or not encrypted. We can even choose different type of compressions. We can choose different kind of encryptions. Even the central directory can be encrypted. There are many varieties how a zip file can be, because the zip standard allows a lot of things, and it's well extendable too. It's hard to prepare for every cases that as a zip file can be constructed too. For test case, I made a unit test that is a small zip 64 file. That's work fine, but for real case, I made a test file. It was even a challenge to make a test file that contains a big XML that's bigger than 4 GB. So I made it on. I tested it only manually because it was very slow to even import such a huge document. It was several minutes in release mode, but when I wanted to debug, it was like 40 minutes to even just import that big document. And about the future possibilities, I said the compression size is limited to. Now we doesn't really want to make such a big document that is bigger than 4 GB, but I don't know how many years. Sure, we will reach this limitation sometimes. For that, we should implement the 2 remaining records that I didn't implement it, but it is not enough to implement these export and import things, because we have to make sure the core code use this information as well. For example, even if there is one local variable in the code that is only 32-bit big, if we use this variable for the new extended data, it will crop and the whole thing will be wrong. So we have to check all the codes that it is used and upgrade them to 46 bits. And that's all. Thank you.